Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends. Oh, yeah, you know what that sound means. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 188. It is Friday night, and I'm getting ready to wrap the recording. Oh boy. Good times. I have some good surprises in store for you this week. Let's see what's going on at chipmusic.org, and then we'll shoot over to the Vancast. Yes, friends. Let's see. That is Congo playing Congo, but the O's are both number zeros, and that's by Monodef, but all the O's are zeros. Whatever. Go get a copy of the MP3 off of chipmusic.org. All right, guys, it's time for the Vancast. Let's do this thing. I'm gonna tell you just how seeped I am in podcast world. It's Monday morning at 6:38 in the morning. Before I left for work, I was working on podcast release day. Monday's podcast release day. So 138 has just been released to the public. And here it is. That happened 1 hour ago. And there I am recording the Vancast for episode 189, not 139. Golly. So it's podcast time. Alright, so here's what I've been digging lately. And this is a concept I think that I've floated on the air in the past couple of weeks, but I actually got to do it a little bit. I have my secondary computer that I finished building. Still doesn't have a name, but it's all built. Actually, I had a name for it, but I've since forgotten, so I don't think it counts. Doesn't quite, nothing I come up with will stack up to the Panzer, though. I love the Panzer as a name. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but I just happened to be thinking about the MS-DOS game Panzer General when I completed the first computer, and it was loud. So, alright, let's go with it. Or at least it struck me as loud when I first turned it on. Now I don't think it's so loud. Anyway, got the secondary computer fired up, playing some Linux games. And right next to my secondary computer, I have a secondary record player. So I threw on some headphones, I jacked into the record player, and I was listening to some 45s while playing Cities Skylines.
City Skylines is a game that when I bought it and installed it, I thought, man, this is going to be the next big game for me. And I think it may have been if I had a more open schedule, but I only put about 10 hours into it, and then I stopped. So City Skylines, listening to some 45s spinning, and I had a good time doing that. I really did. I managed to get my hands on a couple of new 45s over the past couple of weeks. I got a Percy Sledge 45 and a Sinatra, and I got a lot of Perry Como 45s bundled together. So that was cool. That was some stuff. And those go very well, I think, with City Skylines. That being a very chilled out game. It has a business aspect to it, but it's not as hardcore in the business side as the SimCity series is. All right, I'm at McDonald's, so it's McDonald's break time. I'm gonna get the food, and we're gonna do this. All right, one moment, por favor.
Full immersion, time-lapse time.
And that's it. I just went through the McDonald's line, and we'll have a hearty breakfast here in just a minute. A couple things I wanted to make sure and go over on the Vancast this morning. So yeah, super seeped in podcast land. Just put out the last one, and I'm already on the next one. Living and breathing the podcast lifestyle. So let's take a drive to work. Coming up in about a month and a half, I have a vacation coming. I'm taking 2 weeks off. I'm taking a week to drive down to undisclosed location, which we'll talk about when I come back. But I'm taking my family out, and it'll be 2 weeks off. So in order to maintain my commitment to TCR, I'll have to put together a couple of specials that will come out on a scheduled release. So for those 2 weeks in July, the podcast will be initially only available, I think, on YouTube, and hopefully Kaiser will be able to add them to the Next Round network, just based off of that. But then when I get back, I'll add them to the Podomatic page so that they can flow through the RSS feed. I'll add them to the archive so you can get your MP3 copies and all that stuff. But I wanted you to know that's coming, and I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to put out for those 2 weeks. My plan was to release the 12-sided podcast during that time. 12-sided podcast was a 4-part series about tabletop role-playing games. I started it in like 2010, and I only got through 2 episodes. Those being recently uncovered, I'll re-release them, and then I will record the 2 missing parts, thus completing the series. It's something that Kaiser specifically has been asking about on and off ever since, those were released in 2010. So it'll be nice to get those completed and off my plate. All right, hang on a second. It's drive time. A lot of people riding bicycles in rush hour traffic this morning. Got to be mindful, making sure I don't hurt anybody out here on this Monday morning. That wouldn't be good. All right, so that is my plan. A lot of talk about the Monster Cast in the last couple episodes. Nom. So I'm thinking about what I could do for the Monster Cast. There's one thing that set that apart from just being a really long episode was that it was varied enough. I mean, it was 8 hours or however long it was, but it was really like a week of worth of podcasting. Or like an hour being a week of work, it was like 2 months of work, right? Conceivably. And with my current schedule, that is on top of maintaining an obligation to fulfill standard TCR. So I think what I'm going to do is I will take a stab at putting together a Monster Cast 2, but I have to start it in the summer. I have to start it at a time when I don't have to worry about getting my son to school in the morning, I'll have a little bit extra time at my battle station at home before I have to get off to work. So I think that will be the prime time to try to put together a Monstercast 2. It's something that, it's an idea I've revisited many times over the years, because that's another thing. It's been a lot of years since the original Monstercast came out. But I have to reach out to people and see if I can come up with some sort of ace in the hole, some sort of surprise to make it worth listening to as well. So yeah, I'll tell you what, any ideas you have, things you would like to hear in Monstercast 2, I would be very interested to hear what you have. All right? So what are we doing? We're like 4.5 minutes in. So I think what I might do is I'll call it for the Vancast today on Monday morning. And I'll probably revisit the Vancast a second time on, say, Wednesday. Hopefully I'll have a few more things down to go over apart from just like scheduling and stuff at that point. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys have a good week. It's Monday. I'm gonna make it. I'm making it to work today. Not calling out. I'm doing my duty. And I hope you guys are too. I'm rooting for you. I'll see you back in the studio.
Welcome back to Panzer Studios. Let's take a second before we move forward with the show to thank the patrons. That's right, over at patreon.com. These are the guys that are keeping the lights on, keeping me coming back week after week. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Six, Health of Fury. These gentlemen are provided with podcast entertainment a few days early for their fine service. And dear sirs, I do hope that I am fulfilling my end of the bargain in providing you weekly entertainment. All right, so let's go back to Starship Amazing. Now, this is a group that is mentioned briefly in some of the messages in the failbag that we're going to go over in a bit. Talked a bit about them last week. I dug up my copy of The Power of Science is Staggering. Now, this copy, I even have the liner notes in here, which I believe disappeared from the later versions of the album. They used to distribute it with a rich text file that had all kinds, well, not all kinds, there's a couple of sentences plus a track list. So I have this in my Starship Amazing archives. So I'm going to play their second track, I Can Do the Math, I've Done the Calculations. It's probably my favorite track on the album. I remember listening to it in probably 2008 or maybe 2009, thinking, "Wow, I've never really listened to electronic music. I bet if my wife catches me, she'd think I'm a giant nerd." But I don't know. I dig it, and I still dig it. And here it is. This is Starship Amazing in their early days. So I wonder how we should work this, guys. They released those tracks into the Creative Commons, and they're all gone now. Should I... And I saved everything, man. Their April Fool's rap album, they put that out twice. They put it out on April Fool's, and then, like, I don't know, a month later or so, they released, like, a second version where it was, like, all changed around and expanded a little bit. So I saved both versions of that, which is now gone. I've got the original 3, Zoom Zoom Internet, Ultra Modern Rhythms, and then that album. And then I also have the first one they ever charged for, which the name escapes me. The one that had the smiley face on it. They charged for that for a while, and then they ended up making it free. I have all of those, and I also have a folder with every single demo they ever released on their blog. I saved all of that, so I'm curious if I should like put it up on Mega Upload. Or I guess Mega Upload is long gone. Mega dot whatever, so you can get yourself copies of the zips. Just for like a short period of time. And I don't know. Let me know if there's any interest in that. Alright, let's jump back to the Vancast. I have another jumbo session, so this is going to be a long episode this week. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 188.
Thursday morning. So yesterday, just before I went to bed, I was watching some YouTube videos, and I ended up watching like a bunch of my old videos, my own videos from like 2010, back when I was doing those videos with the little face. And what was interesting about that for me was when I stopped doing those, it wasn't just the fact that I stopped using the little face thing. It's that those videos were scripted beforehand, and that also stopped. So I got to see a little insight as to how I used to write, which I think was the most interesting aspect to me. And that got me kind of wanting to do videos like that again. Not just because, I mean, I used to make a video that would be, and I was talking to my son about this, it would be like 3.5 to 4 minutes, and it would take me every bit of a week to finish. Every bit of a week. So it's not so much the idea of using the face or whatever, or spending a long time on visual gags, or that kind of thing, but I'm interested in doing some scripted material again, just that I can really take my time and write things out, and maybe make some content that's a little bit more insightful, as opposed to just doing a podcast for 6 minutes and just having to have footage to play over it, and then, oh, it's a video, there it is. So I think it was last week we talked a lot about, it was either, no, not last week, 2 weeks ago when we did the old times episode of TCR. I talked a lot about Tiger Claw Radio, or back in the days of like Gooch and the Douchebag, and the Monster Cast has come up a little bit. So let's go back to that era for a second. G&DB had this bit that they did 2 times where they made big long top 10 series. They did the top 10, greatest consoles of all time. And these top 10 formats have always been really popular, but I think they were the only people I can think of offhand that separated each list item to its own video. So I thought about following that format. Just something real simple. Top 10 all-time favorite games. Like top 10 greatest games of all time, personally, to me. And that's distinct from being all-time greatest, period, in that that opens the door to adding games that were huge to me, but maybe not big on a cultural front, or maybe didn't leave an enormous impact. Because I can tell you one of my favorite games ever is Wizardry 5 on the Super Nintendo, and nobody cares about that game. Absolutely nobody cares about that game. And that to me was an enormous game. I mean, like you wouldn't believe. And I think the reason for that, and follow with me here on this one, there is a certain like tender period when you're young, where if you play a game and really get into it in this super impressionable age, and I don't know what the age is, I don't know, maybe 10, something like that, those types of games are likely to stick with you. And that was a game I played right at that time. So that would definitely be on my list. I think that would be neat to just carefully write out, and I could work on the scripts on my phone now. I could work on the scripts on my phone, and then I could do the audio recording probably in like 20 minutes before work. Editing is a bear. That's a pet project that I came up with this morning, and it's a touchy thing to go over those types of things on the air, but I mean, whatever. I think the last episode of the podcast got like 15 views on YouTube, and then another 15 on the Next Round Network. So it's just us here. Nobody else is here. It's all right. But the big deal, the big thing. Oh man, yeah, that's gonna clash with the Monster Cast. So there's also the Monster Cast. I'm slating the Monster Cast for release at the end of the summer. I'm gonna do all summer. I'm gonna just keep proceeding as normal, and I'm gonna try and get solid podcast segments put away for the Monster Cast. So yeah, that's gonna happen. So I want you guys to really think about what you would want to hear and let me know, because I'm kind of drawing out a skeleton plan now, and right now it's largely dependent on finding time to reconnect with certain people. And I think I made the decision that, let's assume I can't reconnect with anyone, I still want to do the Monster Cast. If it's just me and just, a few of the normal bros I always talk to, it's time. It's time to roll it out again. Do Monster Cast 2. The last one was in 2011. And just put it out there. At least it's been brought up enough times by my friends just asking where Monster Cast 2 is, that it's time to do another one. Now, if that were the case, it definitely would not be 8 hours. It would probably be closer to like 4 to 6. But I could do 4 to 6 over a summer without too much trouble. Because if I could fall back on a guaranteed 4 to 6 alone as a plan B, then I could make the Monster Cast an annual. I think that would be amazing. If we could take the Monster Cast and make it like, this is now how we close out the summer. Summertime comes, and then we just, in the end, the Monster Cast goes up. You get the Monster Cast, and then you and I can have podcast time during your commutes for like a week. You can commute to work or school listening to Monster Cast for like a solid week at the end of the summer. I think that would be my goal. So let's start driving towards Monster Cast 2 with that in mind, that we're trying to lay in a tradition here. The first one, my goal was to see if I could do it. It was a huge achievement at that time. The fact that I attempted something, I think, was getting people talking. But now we know it can be done, and it's done all the time. I think it's the Retro Game Roundup. They do like a 4 to 6 hour like magazine podcast a month, or at least they used to years ago. I haven't checked in with them in a very, very long time. But yeah, now we know it can be done. Let's see if we can move towards the next achievement. So I'll have that to work with, and then I'm also going to be working on this top 10 video series. And I got some, believe it or not, this morning, for the first time in a long time, I got some new GOG games. I bought Afterlife, which I'm excited to play. I bought Sin Gold, which is a first-person shooter that I was not aware of growing up. I think, well, growing up wouldn't be the right word. I think this was like circa 1999, something like that. So just something that came out that flew under the radar for me. I bought that. I like first-person shooters. And the third game I bought was a game called Hidden and Dangerous. Hidden and Dangerous was a game that I bought. All right, let's tell the tale about Hidden and Dangerous. I used to buy big box PC games at GameStop. Let's go back to 1998. Okay, my older brother had just bought a new computer. It's 1998 or 1999. I don't remember which. My older brother just bought a computer. He spent a lot of money on it. It had something called a Voodoo 3 graphics card in it, which was able to play 3D FX games. 3D FX was the buzzword at the time. Alex Swingle often jokes about using the term video accelerated graphics as a buzzword that can apply to all video games, but you can say it to make it sound nice. Well, they had a term like that at the time, and it was 3D FX. Which, I mean, I understand that it was a real piece of technology that was driving graphics forward, but they would put it, there was a 3D FX splash screen they would put at the beginning that was supposed to impress you, like, as a consumer. And that's why I remember it more as a buzzword rather than a piece of technology. So we were able to play 3D FX games, and the only games I could think of that actually used that were, I clearly remember that splash screen at the beginning of EverQuest at the time. I don't remember if Unreal had it or not. I'm inclined to think no, because Unreal had like the Unreal Engine. But anyway, I'm sliding off track here. So I used to buy big box PC games at the time. Now our GameStop was very small, but all of the console games were in the middle of the store, and the entire walls surrounding the outside. This was a mall outlet. This was not a mini mall thing, so it only had 3 walls. You had the one open gate to walk into from the mall, and then you had the 3 walls around it, right? So those walls, end to end, ceiling to floor, all big box PC games, all of them. And they were, what made it magic for me was there was a lot of clearance games that were old at the time. Not old classics, but old, like a few years old. For example, my love affair with Quake. That's when I bought Quake. When I bought Quake 1, Quake 2 was already out. So I bought Quake 1 for $10 in the big box. I bought Quake 2 for, I think it was $10 also, in a big box. And I bought Quake 3. I remember Quake 3 I had to save for a while. That was $30. I bought those all in the same year, I believe. Before that, I only had the demo version of Quake 1. That was the last game my dad bought before he passed away, was the demo version of Quake 1. That was like the new hot game at the time. But we couldn't run it because my dad's computer didn't have any kind of 3D graphics card because he bought it to run a business off of. So there was no real reason at the time for him to do any like 3D graphics or graphics cards or anything like that. His computer was based around the concept that it had a powerful modem at the time. It had a 56K modem. Yeah, so I got a lot of really great PC games at the time. Now, Swingle and I were talking about this a few nights ago. Some of the games that I bought at that time have now become super expensive. For example, I bought the big box edition of the big box CD-ROM version of Wolfenstein 3D for $5. Good luck getting that now, son, because you ain't getting it. It had a booklet in it with the terrible sound bites translated from German to English. It had maps in the book, and it had a little CD, and that was it. $5. Now you're looking at $100. What else did I have? I had a couple collections of old RPGs that became very expensive. Specifically the Wizardry Archives, that's still like $100. I had something called the RPG Archives that went up to $100 and only recently seems to have gone down in market price to like maybe $30. Still pretty expensive. Anyway, one day, and I can't remember what it was I was buying. I wish I could because it was probably something really ironic. Excuse me. They had a bunch of CD demos at the counter, and they were just like, hey, do you want a demo? And me, I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, I want a demo. It was pretty awesome. It was an awesome time at GameStop. You couldn't imagine GameStop being like this now. The vibe that I had walking in there It was magic. When you walked into GameStop in 1998, you were walking into an outlet of the video game industry in the best way. In the best way. Now, understand, they already had a lot of their anti-consumer practices at this time, but we didn't have, at that point, as many other options as we do now. So to walk in and get a demo for free at a GameStop, with 56K being my internet of choice, or my internet that was available to me at the time, and even at under the 56K umbrella, I was using AOL, which was even slower. Giving me a demo was like, here, this would take you 2 days to download, but you can just have it for free. It was great. You don't get that now. The game they gave me was Hidden and Dangerous. I recognized it because there was a man who had stood in line and bought that game right in front of me like the week prior. So I was like, yes, let's check this out. So I brought it home, and it was a 4-person squad World War II game where you played as the British SAS, and you had 4 players, and you could switch between the 4 of them, and you had to kind of storm the enemy grounds and complete objectives and stuff. And you could switch between your 4 people, and you could give them orders. But as video games go, it was extremely buggy, even for that time, and it wasn't done very well. And it came out when we already had Rainbow Six, and I believe even Rogue Spear, the sequel to Rainbow Six. And those games did the same kind of thing, but way, 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 way better. But I bought this game, Hidden and Dangerous, anyway, after getting the demo. I got the demo, took it home, played it, then went and bought the game. And again, I'm going to date this story now. The full version game that was so new they were passing out demos at the store. The full box game was $30. All right. Now, I'm going to pause the story here. I don't care what the calculators on Google say about revenue increasing from 1998 to 2017. It doesn't matter, because you can talk about how much currency has changed between then and now, but if you're not factoring in the average income increase, that number doesn't mean anything. My first job, I was making $6.50 an hour. Okay? So now what is the minimum wage? Maybe $11, something like that. But if you put that calculator in there, the number's gonna like triple. It does not equal the increase in income. It doesn't. So I don't want you to worry about getting out a calculator and adding up how much $30 in that time would have been, because I don't think it matters. I think when people do that, it's silly. I don't think they understand how economics work. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent altogether. So I got this game and I brought it home and played it. It was buggy. I only got through maybe the first few stages, but later on in life, around the time I was starting Tiger Claw TV, I was probably a year into Tiger Claw TV, I went back looking for this game, and I found that the company that released it made it free. You could just go and download it for free. They said on their website they were trying to promote a sequel. So they made it free, and I downloaded Hidden and Dangerous again for free. This is probably like 2010, maybe 2009, I don't know by now. And I spent a lot of time in those early TCR and TCTV years trying to make a video for Hidden and Dangerous, but I couldn't. I think the first episode of Tiger Claw Radio ever, Hidden and Dangerous was my game of the week. So now, Hidden and Dangerous has gone from being a free game, $30 brand new, to free, and now it's $6 on GOG after being free. So I was happy to add Hidden and Dangerous to my GOG library, And I was happy to reconnect with a game that I have a history with. But a game that was previously free, and not just free in the abandonware scene, this was free from the developers. They released this for free. Okay? I equate this to Rockstar Games. Rockstar Games made Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 free. You have to sign up an incredibly invasive registration on their website, but you can get those full version free on their website. That would be like if next year Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 then became for sale on GOG for $6 a piece after being free for so many years. And you know what? That might happen at some point. Who knows? This is not the only example of that I can think of either. That happened with Zork as well. Zork 1, 2, and 3 were being distributed for free for many years on an old Infocom website. Like the actual Infocom website, or what remained of it. You could go download those 3 games from the developers. Or at least from the company that owned it. And then it turned up on GOG.com, and then that kind of disappeared. So that's Hidden and Dangerous. I noticed a couple of things looking at it on GOG. The sequel did come out. I never heard of it, but there was a Hidden and Dangerous 2. This is a game that resonates with me because I played it years ago. So I don't think I would like a sequel. I think a sequel would be just as buggy, and I wouldn't be as forgiving of the bugs as I am now, or as I was then, rather. Ooh. Wow, that's something you can only see in the Vancast. So I just pulled up behind a garbage truck, and the garbage truck has dumped garbage all over the street. Good job, guys. Yeah. Good job, guys. Alright, now I have to take another way. Oh well. Let's hope this gets there. Dumping garbage in the street. That's what we likes to do. We dump garbage in the street. We work for the city. We work for you. Man. What a hard life when you're dumping garbage on the street at 7:05 in the morning on Thursday. That's a crappy week at work. It really is. That was cool, man. I don't know how interesting all that Hidden and Dangerous stuff was, but I'm excited to go home and play it again. Now I've got it on GOG Galaxy. It's something about GOG Galaxy. Sin is not available on GOG Galaxy. Now I'm not talking about being available on Linux. I'm not talking about being available on some other platform. That's their own platform. You're on GOG Galaxy Windows native. It says that Sin is uncompatible. Why? Who knows? That's silly willy. But I tried it this morning and I got the same kind of message, so I'm going to try this Sin game, but I won't even be able to play it in GOG Galaxy, so I don't know how that's going to go. But I'm still looking forward to playing it. I've got some cool FPSs on GOG. 13 is a great game. I have that on GOG. I've gone over that before. I don't know about FPSs that don't have, that use checkpoint systems where, like, you can't save anywhere you want to. Look, listen, developers. I know that save scumming curbs the difficulty. I know in some cases it can ruin the tension. But we bought the software. If that's how we want to enjoy it, just let us, please. 13 is a hard game. Master Opka would tell you if he was on the air. It's based off an old Belgian comic. It's a hard game, and it's hard because there's certain areas where the checkpoints get pretty far apart, and you run into one spot where, you know, where you die, and then you can't just try it again. You gotta muggle back through the rest of the checkpoint before you get to it. I don't know. I haven't played 13 in a while. I tried it, I think, like 6 months ago when I was digging into GOG Galaxy or whenever that was. Didn't get very far with it. But hey, man, it's a classic. It was removed from the market, so if you want to get 13 now, you got to get on eBay and look for a PC version. Look for a CD-ROM version. I have a CD-ROM drive in the Panzer now, so I can do that with old games that you can't get any other way. Specifically, I have No One Lives Forever in mind. I want to get a copy of the CD and play No One Lives Forever. I heard Alex Swingle talk about it. I heard GG Man Lives talk about it. I want to try it. So that's a CD-ROM game I'm going to get at some point. There's more I want to talk about. Afterlife, I also picked up. Afterlife was another one I got on a CD demo. But that one wasn't given to me at GameStop. That was actually in PC Gamer. PC Gamer used to be distributed with a CD-ROM many years ago. And Afterlife, I tried briefly for I sat down with it like once or twice because I think it shared a disc with another demo that was a big deal. Like when Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers came out, the first one from 1997, that was on a CD and that was the game. Now it was in there with like 10 other demos, but that one was so huge, it's the only one I can remember. So I think I played Afterlife once and it got overshadowed in that way. And the only reason I know what game it is because I described that game to Darabka like 5 years ago, and he was able to tell me, oh, that's Afterlife. Yeah, it's like SimCity, but you build a heaven and a hell. Yeah, Afterlife, buddy. So I bought that this morning. I'm looking forward to playing it again. It's going to be a good weekend for video games. I'm looking forward to it. Wow. Did I really do 25 minutes of Vancast in a week when we already have a Vancast? I'm sorry. This one's going to run long. All right. That's all I got.
Considering that was a 25-minute Vancast session, let's play another track before we jump into the fail bag. All right, guys. This is an oldie. This is from Spamtron, their album Never Say Die, which came out in 2009. I don't know how this was on my phone, but I found it when I was transferring the Vancast over this week. So, in this album, there's a track called Ouch, What Do You Do? And it's their jam remix of theme music from Goonies 2 for the NES. And I used this briefly in my Goonies 2 review from I don't know, 6 years ago or more. And this song is way better than that video. It is. It's probably the fact that this was in there for a few seconds is probably the best thing about that video. So this is Spamtron. I have no idea where to get the record anymore, but I'm sure it's still around. Google yourself Spamtron. There's some amazing music to be found. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. back in Panzer Studios. Yes, indeed. Alright, I do have notes that I was going to go over here in the studios, although now it seems like since we're 47 and a half minutes in, it's not really worth spending too much time. However, just to make sure I've touched on the bulletin points while they're still timely, the GOG Summer Sale is on now. That's right. You heard me talk about it in the Vancast. I went over it in fine detail, the games that I picked up, but what I didn't talk about was Lazy Game Reviewer got himself a partnership, so you can head over to LGR's website and figure out where his list is, and surf into GOG that way and buy something. That way he gets a kickback. So that's one thing. I think it's also worth noting that Morrowind went on sale for a short period of time, and it went down to $350 for Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And that game is that. First of all, I've never seen that game go lower than about $7, and I think that was a rarity. It usually goes for $10 when it's on sale. So $350 for a game like Morrowind was unbelievable. Yeah, so there are some deals to be had over there on GOG.com. The Steam Summer Sale is on its way. It's slated to be released on the weekend of like the 21st. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's a couple of weeks away. It's the 9th right now. We're looking at the 20th, 21st. That sort of 21st. I guess 22nd would make more sense because it's going to be. They usually do things on Thursday. It's either Tuesday or Thursday. But anyway, it's coming. Not next week, but the week after that, it'll be here. Street Fighter V released another update to make things not quite as broken. The invite system in particular has been really terrible in Street Fighter V, and it appears they fixed it. They added a few more features to the battle lounges, so that's great. It'll be nice to check that out. Tekken 7 is out and getting much more players than Street Fighter V, which is proving that filthy casuals abound aplenty. Yes, that's right. Shots fired, you Tekken nerds. Street Fighter V is where it's at. I said it, and what? Okay. I believe that's the end of my notes. Let's go to the Vancast, boys and girls. This is the part where I interact with you. This is your show. You can head over to tigerclawtv.com and leave a comment. YouTube or thenextround.net. Anywhere where you get this show, if there's a comment, it's liable to be read on the air. And I've got a couple. The first one is from Hamrock. And I have to look it up now because he sends it direct to my Gmail, so give me a second. All right. Yes. Hey, CF, thanks for answering my email. Thank you for introducing me to 100% Orange Juice on Steam and Yu-Gi-Oh! Destiny Board Traveler. How much have you played the latter game? I looked up some reviews on Game FAQs, and they weren't too hot. How would you rebut the Yu-Gi-Oh! Critics? By the way, another handheld game that I meant to include on my list was Donkey Kong for the original Game Boy. It's much, much more than a port of the original arcade game, but a very fun puzzle platformer. It's a game I can distinctly remember playing on a road trip during my childhood and would highly recommend it to you. To answer your question about your old question about music, my music tastes are varied and range from classic rock to classical music. I have a soft spot for late 90s alternative music such as Third Eye Blind, Goo Goo Dolls, Everclear, etc. On the other end of the spectrum, I also like punk ska like Goldfinger and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Yeah. And by Goldfinger, I mean that one song that made it on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack. Of course, I also dig chiptunes. I miss Starship Amazing, and when you mentioned them on the podcast recently, I was reminded a couple years ago when I went back to their website looking for their old album, The Power of Science is Staggering, and to my dismay, it's no longer available for download. Sad day. Now, to answer the question of the week, how much would you be willing to pay for your dream game? I'm the kind of guy who cringes when I have to pay more than $15 for a video game, especially retro games. The question is further complicated by the fact that nowadays you need to wait a few months for the GOG or Steam sale to get a price drop. With all that said, I might drop around $80 if it's a game I absolutely want and there looks to be no price drop in sight. An example is collecting for the Sega Saturn. However, I think it's been over 5 years since I spent close to that much on a game. It actually might have been when I bought Pure Solar for the Genesis. So you briefly mentioned the Ouya on the last show, talking about Final Fantasy III. What is your take on the Ouya now that it's been almost 4 years since its release on June 25th, 2013? For this episode's bonus game, may I recommend Elements? You mentioned it on the last TCR. Thanks for all your hard work. Long live the Vancast. Bring back the Monster Cast. Keep rolling retro, Hemrock. P.S. I'm still up for Torchlight 2. So am I, bro. I got it installed. I have all the mods installed. We just need to connect and get a time where I'm playing games and you are also playing games, and thus we can play games at the same time. Let's make that happen. Let's go. Let's start at the end of your email. We'll work backwards. Just because I like to do things as confusing as possible. The last thing you talked about was Elements. Guys, the game of the week, or excuse me, the game for, what month is this now? June? Yeah, the gift game for June is Elements. I have the link here. Elements is a collectible card game that all exists within your browser, and all of the cards are available for you to acquire through gameplay. And one of my favorite things about Elements is that every card is given a hexadecimal code. So when you create a deck, all you have to do to store that deck is copy like a paragraph of unrecognizable code into a text file, and there you go. There's your deck. Paste that code back into the game, and it'll compile it into an actual deck for you. It's been a while since I played it. I have not played it since receiving this email, but I did dig out the link. I remember it being very similar to Magic the Gathering, except, oh man, Hemrock, help me out. What was it? It was like you couldn't, in this game, you could attack monsters directly, or something like that, or you had to attack every turn. I don't know. There was something fundamentally very different about it from Magic the Gathering, and there were twice as many colors, or something like that. But it was good. It was good. It was a free game that was actually 100% free. So for that, I recommend it. Before that, you talked about the Ouya. I thought the Ouya was great for what it was. I think there were some incredible disappointments. In how it was handled. The controller to this day, the controller for the Ouya remains an absolute embarrassment. It's embarrassing what they did with the controller. Hemrock, let me tell you, there is a video you can go check out of a guy who, I think he entitled it The Failure and Disappointment of the Ouya, or The Failure and Death of the Ouya. And what he did was he scraped YouTube for various people talking about it, and he compiled this big montage of the Ouya crashing and burning. And one of the things that made it in the video was 3 seconds of my video of me holding the controller, pointing to it, and going, look how worn it is after about a week of use. He did a very good job, and he credited me too. So that was a good video. I think that, but again, I think the Ouya was great for what it was. It had some really good games on it. I mean, even after the Ouya's sale and liquidation, there are several games that are out now that are just accepted video games in the market that started on the Ouya. We've got the Arrow Party Combat game, which the name escapes me right now. I want to say Torchlight, but it's not Torchlight. It's oh gosh, the archery game that everybody was going nuts about for a little while. I'm gonna look it up now. I can't look it up because I have no idea what it was called. Well, there's that. There's also Duck Game. Duck Game started on the Ouya. That's an amazing game. I actually got Duck Game on Steam maybe like a month ago. Played it a few times with my boy. We had a really good time with it. Duck Game started on the Ouya. And there were a couple others. I think Final Fantasy III remains the biggest game, the game from the biggest company to ever make it on there. But I had a lot of fun with Final Fantasy III. I also had a lot of fun with Killing Floor Calamity, which is frustrating because that Killing Floor Calamity, I don't think you can get that anywhere else. I think the only other place that sells it is like Google Plus, and you have to have some sort of weird machine to do it. I don't know. I miss the Ouya. I think the Ouya... I think the Ouya was so close to staying alive. I think ultimately what happened was a combination of the controller and them just not getting in with the devs. I don't know why, but they just didn't get in with the devs. There's a story about Fortress Craft. You know Fortress Craft? back when Minecraft had not come out for the Xbox yet, there was a whole Xbox players wanted a game that was like Minecraft. So there were a bunch of games that were like clones of it that circulated the market. And the most popular of those games was called Fortress Craft. Now, Fortress Craft was made on the Unity engine. And Unity was one of a couple of engines in there with Game Maker that was famous for you could get a functioning Unity game working on Ouya in 30 minutes. All you had to do was map the controls, produce the APK, and put it on the market, and you were on the Ouya. So I reached out to the guy who was in charge of the Steam account for Fortress Craft. I don't know if it was the developer, but he had the developer tag. I think that game might have been a team. That's why I'm hesitant to just say, oh, it's the developer. But he said that they didn't want to put it on the Ouya because they were afraid the Ouya would hurt its brand. So it was really just about the way the Ouya was looked at and them not wanting to be associated with it. They needed to get that controller. They needed to do a better job with the controller, and they needed to fix the store. I think the way they handled the free the games thing was freaking terrible. They tried to offer like a golden cup and have, $25,000. Just get your Kickstarter and you can get it. No! They needed to have somebody go on Steam and reach out directly to users who had Unity and Game Maker games and say, hey, look, Derek Yu will give you a certain amount of money, a one-time blanket purchase agreement, to release your game on the Ouya. You'll get money and your game will be on the storefront. Great. You could do that. See, they had like $100,000 to do this with. They could have bought out, or not bought out, but they could have negotiated, I would say, at least 3 or 4 big name titles to draw people in. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the business aspect of it. I had the Ouya. I still have it. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know where the plug is to plug it in anymore. If I knew where it was, I'd still plug it in and toy around with it. I liked it for what it was. The Ouya was what made micro consoles popular. Now they seem pointless because we have the Raspberry Pi, right? Why on earth would you buy an Ouya for $100 when you could buy a Raspberry Pi for $35? We'll say about $50 for a Raspberry Pi and all the parts to make it work. You just don't need an Ouya anymore. You just don't. But in 2013, man, it was a hot ticket for me, boy. I had a lot of fun with it. Your taste in music, I have to agree. The reason why I wanted to go back to that was for 2 reasons. One, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, bro fist on that one. I'm a big fan of the Boss Tones. Goldfinger, now that song from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, that was from an album called Hang Ups, and that is a decent album, my friend. They did a really good job making every track on that album sound like a different style of music, but still work. I don't know. It's good. That one's worth checking out. I'm not going to say Goldfinger is a winner across the board, but the album that song came from is worth it. Let's see. Donkey Kong for the original Game Boy. The original Donkey Kong, I remember a Game Boy version. I remember that being advertised. I do also remember that it had more to it than just being a straight up Donkey Kong clone, but I don't remember what. It was supposed to have like 100 levels or something. Like it had the tradition. It started like the first level was the traditional Donkey Kong level that everybody's familiar with, but the more you played, then it just became, it became its own thing. That's pretty cool. I think I would play that. I would check that out. I hadn't thought about it till I read your email. But what I did do though was I purchased an adapter for my Game Boy Advance SP so that I could use earphones with it. I'm gonna get out after reading your last email and this one. I'm gonna get out my Game Boy Advance SP and tinker around with it again. And that brings me to the last point about Yu-Gi-Oh! Board Traveler. I don't know, man. I liked it. I don't know what to tell you. The aesthetic is great. The game is simple but playable. The only problem is that it drags its feet a lot. As far as the detractors to the Yu-Gi-Oh games, I don't know. I would have to hear solid points, and then either refute them or just accept them. Because mind you, I'm not saying, all I can tell you is that I like the game. I can't tell you that it's a perfect game, and I can't tell you, I can't, it's not, okay, it's not like Doom 2, alright? If you wanted to tell me people were disparaging Doom 2, I could point that out and say, those people don't know. Y'all just don't know. That's a different situation. This is more along the lines of Wizardry 5, where it's just like, it struck a chord with me and I dug it. It's not the same thing. But understand though, Destiny Board Traveler, that is not one of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like straight up card playing games where you maintain a deck and then you play other people and you get booster packs. No, there are several of those games on the Game Boy Advance, and I have a few of them, but Destiny Board Traveler is not one of them. Destiny Board Traveler is a very slow-paced board game that you only want to play if you've got a solid hour or so. But there it is. So you got into 100% Orange Juice, huh? I would be interested to know how that goes. I also have a copy of that. My boy Hemrock, thanks much for writing in, bro. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Hope things are going good for you. Let's head over to YouTube, because I think YouTube is the only other place we got any comments this week. How are we doing? An hour and 4 minutes? This one's gonna run long again too. I guess it's good to get out a couple of long episodes, so that when I take a couple weeks off in July, and then leave scheduled releases, then I don't know. Hopefully it'll even out a little bit. Okay, 21 views last week. Not too bad. I've done much worse in my day. All right, we got a couple. This is from Death Adder. Friday the 13th looks cool, and whatever you do, oh my gosh, I botched that. Friday the 13th looks cool, and you do whatever makes you happy, bro. But you're taking a huge gamble throwing more than $20 at a game. Faux show. To the gentleman that suggested another Monster Cast, I second that notion. I just recently listened to the Jerry Terrifying segment for the first time ever, and hearing Jerry Terrifying at full power level is good times. I always imagined 2010 Jerry Terrifying recording every podcast while deadlifting 500 pounds and doing 3 chicks at the same time. You and Jerry were always a great pairing. I think you and Shintai are the only two guys not scared to call Jerry out on his poop. You are right, physical games can be stolen by human hands. I had a PS3 among other items stolen once. So whether it's your neighbor, Jermarcus, or Gabe Newell, somebody is going to eventually take your games away from you. I don't like to pay a lot for video games, so my dream game right now is probably Watch Dogs 2 or something. Death Adder's #1 dream game is Watch Dogs 2. Death Adder. We need Jerry to make this happen. I'm slating Monster Cast 2 for the end of summer. I have to reach out to Jerry Terrifying. I'm sure he would be on board, but I waited to start lining up interviews and guest segments until the summer, until my son is done with school, and I have a little bit more time in the evenings. Anyway, but yeah, we definitely need Jerry, because every time the Monster Cast comes up, it's always Jerry and the bizarre stories that he told in those first. How long was that bit? I think it was like 3 hours or something. I know the Jerry Terrifying part was the longest part, but yeah, we need old Jerry back for Monster Cast 2. As for Friday the 13th, I don't know. I want it so bad, but I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna get it until after. I'm not even going to consider it until after the sale comes and goes. And by that time, I'll be broke again. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. Alex Swingle writes, at minute 6... He does timestamps. At minute 6, lol, what balance for Quake? You mean the same 4 weapons that are always used because they're the best in slot? Railgun, minigun, BFG, shotgun. There's a reason for Insta-Gib mode. That's how balanced Quake is to begin with. Making it a modern MOBA ain't so bad. Number 2, at minute 18, so hyped for MAME ROMs, followed by at minute 23, oh no, more moments of you talking. Hashtag the sarcasm is real. Number 3, in regards to methods of listening to new music, the glorious life of being a reseller has led to my spotting inner hipster on plastic several times. I generally buy anything that looks local, Northwest local, or is so janky it's not mainstream enough to have a Spotify channel. Anything that has to do with my desire to preserve potentially buried treasures that will be crushed in a dumpster as cited in TCR 130. People like Todd Habby, Brian Free, or Tickled Plaid have brought me great joy in learning of their existence. Plus, who can ever forget I'm making love to a phone booth. Number 4, for Death Adder's desire to get Watch Dogs, here's an Amazon link. It's the Amazon link for the PS4 edition of Watch Dogs 2. Number 5, if a rental, $8 is my breaking point. If a physical / DRM light, $20. In the past, it was $50 when it was a game I wasn't truly paying for. 6, for cartridge games in handheld form, I've played very few games in their natural habitat. Probably 8 titles altogether. Let's see. Let's stretch this out. And I've never upgraded past Game Boy. I've always hated the screen size and price for most handheld games. Wait, am I reading this wrong? I always hated the screen size and the price for most handheld games were overpriced to me. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Anyways, my top 5 lists when I was 12 as such. Number 1, Dragon Warrior Monsters, a Pokemon clone. Number 2, Pokemon Blue. Number 3, Ninja Boy 4. Number 4, Zelda DX. Number 5, Mega Man 2. And now my list, none of them. I don't have any patience for any of them anymore. Alright, Swingo, my man. This is how I know I did a good episode. Because when you enjoy it, you get on the internet and complain about it. That's the way Swingle is, guys. Swingle's one of these guys where if he likes something, he wants you to do it better. And he's going to come tell you all the reasons that are wrong with it. The shows that I put out that have no Swingle comment, those are the ones where I know I got to pick it up. Because it was just like, ugh, why even bother telling him what he did wrong? Alright, so a couple of comments. Quake, it was, I don't know, it was, when I say balance, I'm not talking about the weapons being balanced with each other. I'm talking about the players being balanced with each other. Yes, the weapons were unbalanced, but everybody started with the same access to the same weapons. If you didn't have the weapon, it was in the place for anybody to grab, versus the new game where you have the choice between a certain weapon that you start with. So if you have this gun, then that guy might not have the same gun, and this guy might have different stats, and it's mixed differently. There was balance in Quake. It wasn't in the guns, because you're right, but I don't know. I don't like it. It's okay for me to not like it. I think I'm alright with that. Number 2, I got to go back and listen to that, because I can't remember what you're talking about. Number 23, more minutes. It's a podcast, dude. There's a lot of moments of me talking. There's a lot. There's a whole lot of them. There's a moment like that right now. This is the moment of me talking. I'm talking in this moment right now. Right now. And then we have some other comments about pricing. That's a good list of top 5. Most notably Dragon Warrior Monsters, which I have, but only the Japanese version, and I've never played the English version, so I've really only poked around with it superficially. I've never really dug into it. Thanks much for the comments. Death Adder, Alex Swingle, and Hamrock, my dear friends who have given me enough content to wrap the show. Otherwise, I probably would have wrapped it at 41 minutes, and we would have done just fine. Listen, guys. However you managed to find Tiger Claw Radio, thanks for spending an hour and 12 minutes and 15 seconds with me talking about some video games and some just weekly, I take a second to remind you to keep getting up in the morning. Don't stop getting up. And I just want you to just find the grit inside to do the best you can, especially on those bad days. I'm rooting for you.